October 12, 2017. At exactly 9:47 p.m., Emily Snow's phone sent out a single text message. Almost home. Talk soon. It was a message like any other. A routine check-in. A reassurance. But Emily Snow never made it home that night. She never made it anywhere. 20 minutes after that text was sent, Emily Snow vanished without a trace. Her car was found 3 days later in an empty parking lot outside a shopping center. The doors were unlocked. The keys were still in the ignition. There was no sign of struggle, no obvious clues. Just one unsettling detail. A handwritten note was sitting on the passenger seat. Contained only 4 words. I told you so. From the moment police arrived on the scene, they believed one of 2 things had happened. Either Emily Snow had left of her own free will, or something much worse had happened. What they didn't know, what no one could have known, was that this case was about to unravel into one of the most disturbing mysteries the town had ever seen. A case filled with secrets, deception, and betrayal. And at the center of it all was the question no one could answer. What really happened to Emily Snow? Emily Snow wasn't the type of person to just disappear. She was 24 years old, ambitious, and had a promising career at a small law firm in Knoxville, Tennessee. She had grown up in town, went to college only an hour away, and had just gotten engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Jason Matthews. People who knew Emily described her as responsible, kind, and predictable. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. If Emily was going anywhere, she would have told someone. Her parents, Ronald and Susan Snow, had raised her to be cautious. They still lived in the same modest suburban house Emily grew up in. The kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever really happened. Until now. The night she disappeared, Emily was last seen leaving work around 8:30 p.m. Security cameras caught her walking to her car, wearing a beige coat over her office clothes, her purse slung over her shoulder. She didn't look worried. She wasn't in a hurry. Her silver Toyota Corolla pulled out of the parking lot at exactly 8:37 p.m. She stopped at a nearby gas station at 9:02 p.m., where she used her credit card to fill up her tank. At 9:15 p.m., she called her best friend, Lauren Fisher. They spoke for just under 6 minutes. Emily sounded normal. She talked about weekend plans, about a wedding dress fitting she had coming up, and about her long day at work. Nothing seemed off. At 9:47 p.m., she sent her final text. Almost home. Talk soon. But she never made it home. At 10:30 p.m., Jason Matthews, her fiancé, tried calling her. It went straight to voicemail. By midnight, he had called her 7 times. By morning, her parents had already contacted the police. Emily Snow was officially missing, and the investigation was about to take a turn no one expected. The first 48 hours of any missing persons case are the most critical. Police began with the usual steps: checking hospitals, searching local roads, pulling traffic camera footage. Then they found her car. It was parked in an empty lot behind a shopping center, roughly 5 miles from her apartment. Nothing about the scene made sense. The doors were unlocked. The keys were still in the ignition. Her wallet and phone were gone, and that handwritten note sat on the passenger seat. I told you so. It wasn't signed. There were no fingerprints on the paper. There were no security cameras in the parking lot. No witnesses. No clear answers. Jason Matthews, Emily's fiancé, was the first person questioned. His alibi? He claimed he had been at home all night watching TV. No one could confirm that. Police also found out something else. Jason had called Emily 7 times between 10:30 p.m. and 3 a.m., and in those calls he had left 2 voicemails. One of them was calm. "Hey Em, just checking in. Call me when you get this." But the second voicemail? It was different. "Emily, where the hell are you? I know what's going on. Call me back. Now." Detectives asked Jason what he meant by that. His response? He didn't remember. As investigators dug deeper, things about Emily's life began to surface. Things that no one had expected. For starters, she had withdrawn $5,000 in cash the day before she vanished. Why? No one knew. She had also been texting a number that wasn't listed in her phone contacts for months. A burner phone. And when detectives traced the number, it led back to someone with a criminal record. Someone who had once served time for assaulting a woman in 2012. A man named Derek Holt. Emily had never mentioned him before. Not to her family, not to Lauren, and certainly not to Jason. So how did they know each other? And why was she contacting him right before she disappeared? It was the first real lead in the case, and it wouldn't be the last. Because as investigators were about to find out, Emily Snow's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. There were secrets, and one of them had gotten her killed. The moment investigators traced that burner phone back to Derek Holt, everything changed. Up until that point, Emily Snow had been portrayed as a responsible young woman with a perfect life. A loving fiancé, a stable job, a bright future. But that burner phone number told a different story. Emily Snow had a secret, and it was a secret she had gone to great lengths to keep hidden. A secret that might explain why she vanished that night. And more importantly, who wanted her gone. Derek Holt's name wasn't new to law enforcement. He had a history of violent offenses, mostly bar fights, domestic disturbances, and a short stint in prison for aggravated assault in 2012. He wasn't from Knoxville. He had moved to town only a year earlier and worked off the books at a local auto repair shop. But the most unsettling part? No one, not her family, friends, or co-workers, had ever heard of him before. And yet, Emily had been texting him for months. Detectives subpoenaed phone records and found that between July and October 2017, Emily had exchanged over 200 messages with Derek Holt. But all of those messages had been deleted from her phone. It was clear Emily didn't want anyone knowing about him. Which raised the question, what was she hiding? And more importantly, had Derek Holt been the last person to see her alive? As police worked to piece together Emily's last moments, they uncovered something chilling. Emily Snow had made a call to Derek Holt at 9:38 p.m. on the night she disappeared. That was 9 minutes before she sent her final text message. "Almost home. Talk soon." It was a short call, just under 2 minutes. And then nothing. Derek Holt never called or texted her back. So what happened in those 2 minutes? Detectives brought him in for questioning. His reaction? A smirk. Derek Holt didn't deny knowing Emily, but his version of the story. She had reached out to him, not the other way around. And according to him, Emily Snow wasn't who everyone thought she was. Investigators pressed him for details. Why had Emily been texting him? Why did she call him the night she vanished? Derek's answer was simple. She needed my help. Help with what? He hesitated. Then he laughed. She was in trouble. Big trouble. When detectives pushed harder, he changed his story. "Look, man, I don't know what happened to her. Yeah, she called me, but I didn't meet up with her that night. That's all I know." He refused to say anything more. No alibi, no explanation. And without any direct evidence linking him to her disappearance, police had no choice. They let him go, but something about his story didn't add up. Because while Derek Holt might have been a liar, there was one thing he wasn't: the only secret Emily Snow was keeping. 3 days after Emily vanished, detectives made another discovery. She had been withdrawing large sums of money, not just the $5,000 before she disappeared, but nearly $20,000 over the past 6 months. And where was that money going? Into an account no one knew she had. An account under a name that wasn't hers. An account that had been emptied the day before she vanished. Emily Snow had been hiding something, and whatever it was, someone had found out. Detectives returned to Jason Matthews, Emily's fiancé. Had he known about the secret bank account? His answer? No. But then came the real shock. Jason had been keeping a secret of his own. In the weeks leading up to Emily's disappearance, their relationship had started to fall apart. Emily had become distant, secretive, and withdrawn. She stopped coming home on time. She started ignoring his calls. And then, just a week before she vanished, she had done something he never expected. She told him she needed space. She wouldn't say why, but she had packed a bag and spent 2 nights away. Where had she gone? Jason didn't know, or at least, that's what he wanted police to believe. Because as detectives soon discovered, Jason Matthews wasn't being entirely truthful either, and he was about to become suspect number 1. For weeks, Emily Snow's disappearance had been a mystery wrapped in speculation. A woman with a picture-perfect life, suddenly gone without a trace. But as detectives began to pull at the loose threads of her past, the truth became harder to ignore. Emily wasn't the person everyone thought she was. She had secrets, a hidden bank account, a mysterious connection to a dangerous man, and now, a break in the case that would change everything. Because 2 weeks after she vanished, police received a phone call, one that would finally point them to where Emily Snow had been that night, and possibly where her body was now. The call came in on October 27, 2017, exactly 14 days after Emily had last been seen. A woman, hesitant and nervous, claimed she had seen Emily Snow on the night she disappeared. Her name was Sandra Ellis, and she worked as a night shift cashier at Riverway Gas Station, a small 24-hour stop off Highway 41, about 10 miles outside of Knoxville. At first, detectives weren't sure what to make of her claim. Tips had been flooding in for weeks. Most of them led nowhere. But then she said something that made them stop cold. She wasn't alone. According to Sandra, at around 10:15 p.m., less than an hour after Emily had sent her final text, a black SUV pulled up to the gas station. A woman who looked like Emily Snow got out and walked inside. She was wearing a gray hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. She seemed tense, looking over her shoulder, checking the door every few seconds. But the detail that truly sent chills through the detectives? Sandra swore that the man inside the SUV was Derek Holt. The same Derek Holt who had denied seeing Emily that night. And that wasn't all, because Sandra remembered something else. Something that suggested Emily Snow had been running for her life. Investigators rushed to the Riverway gas station and demanded to see the surveillance footage. They expected to find either proof of Sandra's story or another dead end. But when they watched the tape, everything changed. At 10:16 p.m., a black Chevrolet Tahoe pulled into the parking lot. A woman matching Emily's description climbed out from the passenger side. She walked into the store, her hands shoved deep into her hoodie pockets. Her posture was stiff, her movements hurried. And then, she looked straight into the camera. It was Emily Snow. She was alive, at least for a little while longer. But what happened next was even more disturbing. Emily walked up to the register. Sandra, the cashier, was seen talking to her, but Emily barely responded. And then, just as she reached into her pocket, a man stepped into the store. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark baseball cap and hoodie. He walked directly toward Emily. She froze. The man grabbed her by the wrist. A brief struggle. Then, Emily turned and walked out the door with him. The black SUV pulled away moments later. And after that, she was never seen again. With undeniable proof that Derek Holt had lied about that night, detectives knew they had to move quickly. They tracked down the black Chevrolet Tahoe to a man named Keith Donahue, a known associate of Holt's with a record for drug trafficking and armed robbery. When police found the vehicle, it had already been scrubbed clean. But forensic testing revealed something chilling. A small smear of blood on the front passenger seat. DNA analysis confirmed what investigators already feared. It was Emily Snow's blood. The SUV had been used to transport her. But the real question remained. Was she still alive when she left that gas station? As investigators pressed harder, they uncovered a new lead. Surveillance cameras at a rundown roadside motel near the gas station captured footage of that same black SUV pulling into the parking lot. Just 30 minutes after Emily was last seen, two men got out, Derek Holt and Keith Donahue. They went inside room 214 and stayed there for over an hour. Emily, however, was never seen leaving. Police raided the motel room, hoping to find any trace of her. Instead, they found something much worse. A piece of duct tape with long strands of blonde hair stuck to it. A broken cell phone missing its SIM card. And on the bed, a single silver bracelet. The same bracelet Emily Snow's mother had given her for her birthday just a few months before she disappeared. The walls were closing in. Holt and Donahue had taken Emily to that room. Something had happened there, and whatever it was, it hadn't ended well. The moment police confronted Derek Holt about the gas station footage and the motel room, he did something that confirmed their worst fears. He ran. On October 29, 2017, a statewide manhunt was launched. Both Holt and Donahue had vanished, and with them, the last hopes of finding Emily alive. But detectives weren't giving up, because there was still one thing left to uncover. One thing that might finally reveal the truth about what really happened that night. And that was why Emily Snow had been so desperate to disappear. The search for Emily Snow had reached a critical turning point. For 2 weeks, investigators had been chasing dead ends. But the gas station footage changed everything. Now, they knew Derek Holt had been lying all along. They knew Emily had been with him that night. They knew she had been taken to a motel room, and they knew she had never walked out. But the biggest question remained. Where was she now? Then, detectives uncovered something they never expected. Something that turned this case from a missing persons investigation into something far more disturbing. Because Emily Snow hadn't just vanished. She had been running from a secret, and someone had made sure she never got the chance to tell it. As police continued digging into Emily's life, they found something buried deep within her phone records. A series of text messages sent months before she disappeared. The messages were between Emily and a contact saved under the initials JR. At first, the text seemed innocent. "I don't know what to do. I'm scared. What if he finds out? I can't keep this secret much longer." The last message, sent just 2 days before Emily vanished, stood out. "Meet me at the usual place. We have to talk. I don't think I'm safe anymore." The person she was texting, JR, had never responded. Who were they? And what secret has Emily been so afraid to reveal? Investigators needed answers, and they needed them fast. With Derek Holt still on the run, detectives turned their attention to one person who might have known more than he claimed: Ryan Snow, Emily's ex-husband. From the start, Ryan had insisted he had nothing to do with Emily's disappearance. His alibi? He had been at his law office working late on the night she went missing. But there was a problem. Security footage from his office building showed that Ryan had left work at 8:30 p.m., almost an hour before Emily sent her last text message. So where had he gone? And why had he lied? When police questioned him again, his story suddenly changed. I went home. I must have just forgotten the exact time. It was a weak excuse, and detectives weren't buying it. Because Ryan Snow had a history of control, a history of threats, and, as it turned out, a history of violence against Emily. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something shocking. A police report filed by Emily herself 6 months before she disappeared. In it, she had described a terrifying encounter with Ryan. He grabbed me by the arm so hard I had bruises the next day. He said if I ever tried to leave Knoxville, he would make sure I regretted it. He told me that if I ever spoke to anyone about what I knew, he would ruin me. What had Emily known? What had she been planning to reveal? And had Ryan Snow made good on his threat? Police were now convinced. Ryan knew far more than he was letting on. But before they could prove it, a new clue surfaced. One that changed the entire direction of the case. On November 3rd, 2017, investigators traced a withdrawal from Emily Snow's bank account, a transaction made just 1 day before she vanished. The amount? $10,000. It was taken out in cash, and the withdrawal slip had been signed by Emily herself. The question was, why did she need that much money, and where had it gone? Then, an even bigger revelation came to light. A second withdrawal had been made on the same day. But this one hadn't been from Emily's account. It had been from Ryan Snow's personal business account. And the amount? Another $10,000. Was it a coincidence? Or had Emily Snow been trying to pay someone off? The answer was waiting in one final piece of evidence. Something investigators had almost overlooked. While going over evidence from the motel room, detectives found a torn piece of paper shoved inside a nightstand drawer. It was a handwritten note, half-burned, as if someone had tried to destroy it. The writing was faint, but forensic analysis recovered a few words. Meet at the riverbank. Bring the money. No cops. The riverbank. A secluded spot just 5 miles from the motel. If Emily had gone there that night, it might be the last place she had ever been seen alive. Detectives knew what they had to do. They assembled a search team and headed to the riverbank, hoping, praying, that they weren't already too late, because something told them they were about to uncover the truth, and it wouldn't be easy to forget. The search had led detectives through a tangled web of secrets and deception. Emily Snow was no longer just a missing person. She had been running from something, or someone. The motel, the gas station footage, the cryptic text messages. All of it pointed to a dark truth buried beneath the surface. Then came the final breakthrough, the riverbank, a secluded spot that had been overlooked in the early days of the investigation. Detectives had a feeling that this place held the answers they had been chasing for weeks. What they didn't know was that what they were about to uncover would change the case forever, and that some secrets were never meant to be found. The team arrived at Shallow Creek Riverbank early in the morning. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and the only sounds were the distant calls of birds. If Emily had been here, there was no sign of her now. Then, a sharp-eyed officer spotted something half-buried near the tree line. It was a torn scrap of fabric, faded and worn, caught on a jagged rock. Dark stains marred its surface. Nearby, a single tire track led toward the water. Someone had been here, and they had gone to great lengths to make sure no one ever found what they left behind. Divers were called in. The water was murky, the current sluggish. Hours passed as they searched. Then, one of the divers resurfaced suddenly, waving frantically toward the shore. "We found something." At the bottom of the river, half buried in mud and silt, sat a black SUV. It was overturned, its windows shattered, and inside, the skeletal remains of a woman. The discovery sent a shockwave through the case. Could this be Emily Snow? Or had someone else suffered the same fate? The medical examiner worked quickly to recover what little evidence remained. Then came the confirmation. The remains belonged to Emily Snow, but the real shock was how she had died. At first, it seemed like a tragic accident. Car driven into the river. A desperate attempt to escape that ended in disaster. But the autopsy told a different story. Emily hadn't drowned. Her cause of death? Blunt force trauma to the skull. She had been killed before the car ever hit the water. This wasn't an accident. This was a murder carefully staged to look like one. And the evidence pointed to one suspect. With this new revelation, detectives turned their focus back to Ryan Snow. They had already caught him in multiple lies. The threats, the alibi that didn't hold up, the unexplained bank withdrawals. And now, Emily had been found exactly where the burned note said she would be. Ryan was brought in for a final interrogation. At first, he denied everything. Then, detectives showed him the bank records, the matching $10,000 withdrawals. Emily was blackmailing you, wasn't she? Ryan's composure cracked. Then, the final blow, the gas station footage. Not the one showing Emily with Derek Holt, but a newly recovered video from later that night. It showed Ryan Snow's car pulling into the same lot, and a man resembling him stepped out, carrying what looked like a crowbar. The silence in the room was deafening. Then Ryan muttered, "She should have left things alone." In the end, the full story came together. Emily had discovered something about her ex-husband, something he had desperately wanted to keep hidden. Ryan Snow's law firm was a front for money laundering, a scheme that involved millions of dollars. And Emily had found evidence that could destroy him. She had been planning to leave Knoxville and go to the authorities. That was what the $10,000 withdrawal was for, a way to disappear before Ryan could stop her. But Ryan found out, and he wasn't about to let that happen. So he did the only thing he could think of. He lured her to the riverbank, under the pretense of settling things once and for all. And when she arrived, he ended her life before she could ruin his. He staged the scene, pushed her car into the river, and left, believing no one would ever find the truth. But secrets don't stay buried forever, and neither did Emily Snow. With the overwhelming evidence against him, Ryan Snow was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. After a high-profile trial, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Derek Holt, the man caught on video with Emily, was cleared of involvement in her death, but he was convicted of fraud and obstruction for hiding information during the investigation. As for Emily Snow, she had spent the last weeks of her life running from a truth that cost her everything. And in the end, the one person she had once trusted the most was the one who had betrayed her in the worst way possible. Justice had been served, but nothing could erase the fact that Emily Snow's story had ended far too soon, and all because she had dared to uncover the truth. The case of Emily Snow was a chilling reminder of how dangerous secrets can be. She had tried to escape, She had tried to seek justice, but in the end, the truth had been her downfall, and the person who was supposed to protect her had been the one to silence her forever. But no secret stays hidden forever, and in the end, justice had found its way back to the surface, even if it was too late to save her. This marks the end of the story, but not the end of the lesson, because stories like Emily Snow's happen far too often, and sometimes, the people closest to us are the ones we should fear the most.